Hello. I want to welcome all of you tonight. Hi, we're live now?
Live.
Okay, great. So thank you all for joining us. It's an honor to be able to have you here. And you know, this is a special occasion. We introduced this program of let's see here, just a second. So we JNet has has these 4 learning campaigns a year, and this one is a special one. It's in honor of the 11th of Nissan, which this year corresponds to next Tuesday, April 19th. And it is the birthday of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Schneerson. And in order to honor this occasion, traditionally, it has been the custom of many to give the Rebbe a gift, and specifically a gift of learning. And so, you know, I hope that you came to our page. Either I'm sure you clicked on a link from an email or something like that, and on our webpage jnet.org/11, if you click on the link to download the PDF, you will have the content that we will be reviewing tonight. And on the final page of that PDF, we actually included a talk of the Rebbe from 1972. Where he talks about what it means to give him a gift and what kind of gift he wants. So I'm just going to read a little bit from that talk over here. Since there are those who are preparing a gift for my birthday and are wondering whether it should be reflected in manners of charity, this talk was actually given on Purim, and so which is one of the things that we do on Purim is the mitzvah of matanot lavyonim, which is giving gifts of charity to the poor. So the Rebbe is saying, if you wanted to know what kind of gift I want, whether it should be charity or through learning Torah, I would like to state clearly, first and foremost, it should be a gift of Torah. I don't mean charity for matters of Torah. The Rebbe clarifies, not, maybe you think Torah means just supporting someone who is learning, or supporting an organization which promotes learning, or a school. But he says no, but rather Torah itself. In other words, I simply mean that no matter what part of Torah it is, anyone who is interested in giving a gift must add in Torah study. And so, what better way to celebrate the Rebbe's birthday than by giving him the gift that he asked for, which is a gift of Torah. And so we have prepared this learning campaign, which is a talk from the Rabbi from the year 1965 on Pesach. The Rebbe gave over this talk, and it was a great experience preparing it, and the translators the adaptation, which was written by Rabbi Shimon and Chaya Dubinsky. They did a great job. In fact, they did such a great job that when I read it, I found that there was really not much more that I could add. And so, I just want to ask you to accommodate me here, and I'm actually just going to read the great translation that they did. I want to thank them for that, and also thank Rabbi Yehuda all-time who did the editing, and also. I'll just be reading the sikha, reading the talk, and there's a couple of things I'll add here and there, but I'm just going to be reading it, and then we'll pause if anyone has any questions. There is that option to chat your questions, and I will pause at different points in during the talk to address those questions. By participating and learning this, we're also joining with hundreds of people all over the world who are joining us in this class, but also in joining and learning this specific talk, which is a great way to connect, but also specifically in this year, which is a year of Hakel, of gathering, and it's a special opportunity to connect and be inspired in the words of Torah that we'll study, and which the goal of it all is to increase in our connection to God. So let's begin. So if you have that PDF open, you can go to page number 8. And the title of this talk is, Why is this night different? The spiritual superiority of Pesach. So countless Jewish holidays are scattered throughout the year. Most often the theme goes like this: they tried to destroy us, we won, let's celebrate. But when you take a closer look, you see that each holiday has a unique aspect, making it shine as it takes the stage. Let's get an idea of what makes Pesach unique and special above all the other holidays. First, we'll look at a teaching in the Talmud which discusses some other Jewish holidays. Then we'll ask the big question that the Hasidic masters ask about this teaching. And finally, we'll discover the revolutionary analysis of the Rebbe on these Hasidic sources, giving us a new perspective of that Talmudic passage and of Jewish law in general. Not only will this show us the greatness of Pesach, it will give us a glimpse into one of the amazing life lessons the Rebbe imparted to us, providing us with a new perspective on God's workings and creation. And so let's start with the Talmudic teaching. The pinnacle of the day of Rosh Hashanah is when the shofar is blown. Yet, the Talmud states that when Rosh Hashanah coincides with Shabbos, we actually don't blow the shofar. What is the reason for the cancellation of this special mitzvah? The Talmud provides the following explanation, and this is a quote from the Talmud and Tractate Rosh Hashanah on page 29b, where it says, "Hakol chayavim b'tkiya shofar, ve'ein hakol b'kiyim b'tkiya shofar." Everyone is obligated in the blowing of the shofar, but not everyone knows how to do it. If you've ever tried, it can be quite challenging depending on the type of shofar you have. A lot of people shop around a lot to get the right shofar. Some people prefer a really big one. Some people get a small one. Some say that the bigger ones are harder than the small ones. Either way, it's not that easy to blow and to get all the sounds right. And so, since people don't know, so we have the sages decreed the Gzeira Shema Yitlenu Biyada V'Yelchetz La'Baki Lomod V'Yavirenu Arba Ames B'Shesara. The sages decreed that nobody blow the shofar on this day to the fear that an unlearned individual will bring the shofar to an expert to inquire about the laws. In doing so, he will transgress the prohibition of carrying an object more than 4 cubits in a public area on Shabbos. Now, on Shabbos, we're prohibited from doing the 39 types of work which were done to construct the tabernacle, the Mishkan. And one of the things that was done was carrying an object from one domain to another. And in a public domain, the distance of 4 cubits. Cubit, by the way, as you can see in note 2 there from Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, is 21¼ inches. So 4 cubits distance would be transgressing the biblical command to rest on Shabbos. And because the sages were worried someone might do this, so they made this decree. So the Gemara concludes because of this, we don't blow shofar. The Gemara concludes the same reasoning applies to the omission of reading the Megillah when Purim falls out on Shabbos, and to the omission of shaking the lulav when Sukkot falls out on Shabbos. So now the big question. So Reb Shner Zalman of Liadi, also known as the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad Hasidus, raised the following question. The Torah is eternal and its laws are everlasting. But nonetheless, the rabbis are concerned that there might be one unfortunate shlumiel who didn't make it to the synagogue for the shofar blowing. And he has his own shofar at home, but he doesn't know how to blow it on Rosh Hashanah. So he'll bring it to the rabbi's house for a tutorial, forgetting that it's forbidden to carry an object in the public domain on Shabbos. The early sages of the Talmud were so concerned about this hypothetical case that they said, you know what, when Rosh Hashanah coincides with Shabbos, let's suspend the mitzvah of shofar altogether. Hold on a second. Isn't that a little extreme? Because of this obscure case, the entire Jewish nation loses out on the mitzvah of shofar? In any case, how could the sages go ahead like that and uproot a mitzvah from God's eternal Torah? Here, Hashem is giving us this command. And the sages are saying, oh, you know what? You don't have to do it because we're worried about something else. This question is actually a very strong question. It was raised again by various Rabbi of Chabad following the Alter Rebbe. By the way, just want to give everybody a piece of information here. There is a glossary which covers some of the terms. If you're not familiar with some of the terms here, a lot of those terms are covered in the glossary at the end of following the talk here. So if you encounter a word there, quickly check the glossary, see if that might help you out. This question was also raised by the question with the fifth Chabad Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab, initiated his fundamental Hemshech Samach Vav, which was a series of many discourses delivered over the course of 2 years. It's actually one of the fundamental series of Hasidic discourses, which is studied in the yeshivas, and is something which everybody who studies Hasidus knows about, Samach Vav. So the title of the first discourse of Hemshech Samach Vav is Yontif Shor Rosh Hashanah Shechol Yis B'Shabbos Mikdashanu Hayu Teikin Av Levin Vina. That when the holiday of Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos, they would only blow in the Beis Hamikdash, not in the rest of the world, because of this decree. So that's the question which is addressed by all the by the Alter Rebbe and by the many Rebbeim after him as well. And this is the answer that they give to this question. We must first understand that every mitzvah carries a unique divine energy in it. When you do a mitzvah, you bring that energy from the mitzvah into the world, which affects your own physical life and your surroundings. When Mashiach comes in the Messianic era, the wool will be lifted from our eyes, and we'll finally sense this energy and we'll be able to see the fruit of our efforts of those mitzvahs that we did. In particular, the mitzvah of shofar carries a tremendous energy, one that will affect the entire year to come. That's this, it's the head of the year, and the shofar brings down this very special energy on the day of Rosh Hashanah. So what happens when Rosh Hashanah comes along and it's a time we would usually blow the shofar, but it's Shabbos? What about the divine energy that the world needs for the entire year at that time? So here's the secret, and this is what the Rebbe Rashab, this quote from the Rebbe Rashab from Hemshech Samach Vav, Kol ha'hamshachos hanase ma'idei tikiyah shofar nase b'Shabbos mitzad atzmai. All that is drawn down to the world through the blowing of the shofar is accomplished through Shabbos automatically. Wow. With its magnitude of holiness, not only does Shabbos bring its own unique energy into the world, it fills in for the lack of shofar too. It is no longer necessary to blow the shofar on Shabbos because its influx of divine energy is already present. By observing Shabbos when it coincides with Rosh Hashanah and not blowing the shofar, we accomplish exactly what the shofar would have achieved in any other year when Rosh Hashanah occurs on a weekday. Therefore, the sages deemed it appropriate to suspend the mitzvah of shofar due to the concern of a possible transgression of carrying on Shabbos. So basically what we're saying here is that when Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos, we get that energy through Shabbos, not through blowing the shofar. And therefore, we have a concern that someone might carry the shofar because that energy is already being accomplished. So now the Rebbe looks at this whole question and gives us a little bit of a deeper insight into what's going on here. And that's this next part of the talk, a deeper look. Let's get back to the Alter Rebbe's question. How could the sages revoke a Torah commandment? Now, there seems to be a much simpler way of answering this question. Tosfos, that's a commentaries on the Talmud, states that the Torah grants the Jewish court in specific circumstances where necessary the power to uproot a mitzvah. This is coming from the Tractate of Brachos. There's a specific case over there where the sages, actually, exempt a person from doing a mitzvah. And we see that there is this power that the sages have to do this. So what was so problematic to the Alter Rebbe and his successors that they had this question, how could the sages uproot a mitzvah? They could. God gave them that ability. Now, again, just to be clear here, there's very specific circumstances when this is okay. And if you look at note 7 there for a comprehensive discussion of this subject and the specific instances where the rabbis do use this power, there are specific guidelines. It's in the Rambam Hilchos Mamrim. In the first couple chapters there, discusses the specifics of when this could happen. But the idea that they can do this is something which is, known. So what's the big question over here? How could they uproot a mitzvah? And so, in order to understand this, so what was really bothering them, the Rabbi explains, was something much deeper than whether the sages have the power to uproot something from the Torah or not. Apparently, hidden between the lines lies a fundamental Hasidic concept. Nothing can get in the way. One of the core principles of Judaism is that the Creator fashioned this world with a purpose. We're here for a reason. How do we know what that purpose is? Through His Torah. He gave us a Torah, told us what we're meant to do. The Torah prescribes detailed instructions, mitzvahs, which allow us to bridge the gap between the physical and the spiritual and draw holiness into the mundane. The Torah shows us how to bond with our Creator, purifying the world and making it His home. And that's the purpose of creation. So we have a purpose. If anyone's just joining us, we are on page number 12 at the top. So every atom in this world was put here for us human beings to fulfill the mitzvahs. And there is not a single entity in the universe, from the largest star to the smallest particle, that can prevent us from fulfilling this goal. After all, why would an all-knowing, omnipotent Creator put something obstructive or unnecessary, for that matter, in His creation? If you can do anything, why would you, give a mitzvah and then also put something which is going to prevent someone from doing this? Even a limited human being who fashions, say, a car, pays attention to every detail, installing every component deliberately. Be it the gauges on the car, the seat recliners, or even the DVD player in the back. Every feature is there to enhance the driving experience. The gauges help the driver stay in control of the car, know what's going on. The seat recliners let him sit comfortably. And the DVD player helps keep his kids entertained so he can focus on the road. The intention of the Creator is all that more planned out and deliberate. He arranges every molecule and event with utmost precision. And since He created everything, there's nothing in this world that does not lead to its ultimate purpose, and certainly nothing that may hinder this purpose from being reached. And so now we're going to redefine the question of how could the sages uproot a mitzvah. With this premise, the question of the Alter Rebbe takes on a whole new meaning. The Torah tasked the sages with the job of strengthening the positive commandments of the Torah and building protective borders around the negative ones. On Shabbos, for instance, the sages instituted certain laws to prevent a Jew from carrying in a public domain or transgressing any of the other 39 forbidden types of work. When the sages saw that the cycle of the calendar will, from time to time, cause Rosh Hashanah to coincide with Shabbos, they prohibited blowing the shofar on that day, since this may lead certain individuals to accidentally commit a forbidden act on Shabbos. So the sages have a job. Their job is to make sure that the commandments are being fulfilled. And when it comes to, observing a negative commandment, we need to be extra careful sometimes to make sure that even inadvertently, someone's not going to do this command, transgress this commandment. But wait a second, isn't that in contrast to the above-mentioned axiom it's impossible to imagine that anything, the lunar and solar cycles included, would be able to disrupt the proper performance of a mitzvah. So again, God created the lunar and solar cycles. He knew and intentionally made that Rosh Hashanah will sometimes fall on Shabbos. And so how is it possible that the prohibition of carrying on Shabbos and the mitzvah of shofar will conflict, forcing the sages to uproot the mitzvah of shofar so that people won't carry on Shabbos? So now the question isn't on the sages, how could they do it? The question is, how does God put the sages and the mitzvahs in this type of situation where they're going to contradict each other? This then is what was bothering the Rabbi of Chabad. How can the sages accept that something in the order of the cosmos can force them to uproot a mitzvah from being performed in its appropriate time? How can God command us to blow the shofar every Rosh Hashanah and then create the world in a way that will sometimes preclude the actual fulfillment of that command? The answer to this question, continue the Rebbeim, is obvious. Even when the shofar is not actually blown, its effect is still achieved. By keeping Shabbos with all its restrictions, we accomplish whatever the shofar was to accomplish. The fact that the sages were concerned that an unlearned person might carry on Shabbos and therefore uprooted the mitzvah serves as evidence that the effect of the mitzvah of shofar will be achieved regardless. So this makes us look at everything the other way around now. Halacha inside out. This gives us a newfound appreciation of mitzvahs and their laws in general, including those instituted by the rabbis. The wide array of detailed laws that comprise the vast expanse of halachic literature are not a bunch of fragmented, unrelated directives. They reflect an all-encompassing underlying truth. The sages were able to perceive the inner dimension of the dynamics of Torah and creation, and it is on this truth that their rulings are based. Imagine a strip of islands grouped in close proximity in the ocean. At first glance, it appears as if these islands are diverse and disconnected. When looking below the surface, however, one will discover that in reality, all these islands protrude from the same ocean bedrock, their separation merely a result of a superficial layer of water. Here too, the sages were able to plumb deeper into the sea of Torah, and their rulings were influenced by their understanding of the Torah's inner nature. So the sages aren't just making rules based on things that happened. They're also very in tune with what's going on behind the scenes, underneath that superficial layer. And because they knew what was going on, they knew when they were going to prescribe certain stringencies and when not to. So what does this teach us about Pesach? So we can now appreciate the holiness of Pesach and its primary mitzvah, the eating of matzah. By the way, about matzah, matzah is called the poor man's bread, and I'm sure the reason for that is because it's very simple ingredients, just flour and water. So poor man's bread, didn't have enough money to buy yeast to make the bread rise, so it's called poor man's bread, not something rich people would eat. Nowadays, they call it the poor man's bread because if you ever try to buy a pound of shmur matzah, it's going to run you over $20. Well, I mean, you can get cheaper ones now. They started making them in Ukraine. But, typical hand-baked shmur matzah, a pound of hand-baked shmur matzah is going to run you $20 or more. So they call it poor man's bread because it makes you poor. And that'll just get you through, maybe one seder for yourself. Anyways, so the primary mitzvah of matzah on Pesach is something which is really powerful. The sages found it appropriate to omit the physical acts of reading the Megillah, shaking the lulav, and even blowing shofar when the respective day falls on Shabbos, because Shabbos fills in what is lacking. But they did not extend this restriction to the Pesach matzah. Indeed, the commentators of later generations, and if you want, at the end of the talk, we included a couple of commentaries who gives a couple answers, which the Rabbi says, points out some difficulties with. But commentators of later generations attempt to find an explanation for this. Why aren't the sages concerned that an unlearned person will carry his matzah to the rabbi's home to ask about its laws? Not everyone's familiar with the exact amount of matzah that must be eaten and which point in the Seder they have to eat it. There's also other laws with regards to other commandments, the maror, the 4 cups, if you leaned, if you didn't lean, so there's lots of details and lots of things to ask about. Why weren't we concerned that someone will, bring their matzah or maror or wine, to the rabbi on Pesach? Lulav, for instance, seems much less complicated than matzah. The only questions are, which way you shake it. I mean, technically, only one shake is good enough, and it's really and what bracha to make and which bracha first maybe, but it's not so complicated in the actual specifics of the mitzvah of the lulav. And so, and yet the sages forbade its performance when Sukkot occurs on Shabbos. So it's not about the what of the mitzvah here. So based on the Rebbe's approach, however, everything falls into place. We know the behind the scenes. The fact that the sages did not extend their ruling to the matzah on Pesach tells us 2 things. First of all, it must be that matzah accomplishes something even Shabbos cannot achieve. Yes, the energy drawn on Shabbos is so great that it can fill in for a missing shofar, lulav, or megillah. Yet when Pesach falls out on Shabbos, Shabbos cannot fill in for the matzah because the spiritual light matzah elicits is even greater. The ruling of the sages highlights yet a second wondrous aspect about Pesach. The holiness of the night has a supernatural effect on us, elevating us to a level where there is no concern that we will commit even an unintentional sin. So we're on Pesach, there's this great light which actually changes the human nature that we usually have, where we're faulty. We mess up sometimes. We aren't always so aware of what we're doing, and we can unintentionally do a transgression. But on Pesach, there is this powerful effect that the matzah has, which actually changes that human nature. It takes away that tendency, that human tendency to make mistakes. And these 2 ideas, the fact that there's a higher energy and that it also affects us in not being able to make an unintentional sin, are interdependent. As explained above regarding the other holidays, the concern that one may carry on Shabbos was not the cause of the sage's decree, but a symptom of the fact that the mitzvah does not need to be performed when the holiday coincides with Shabbos. So here too, the matzah is eaten even when Pesach occurs on Shabbos because the achievements of this mitzvah can't be accomplished in any other way. And consequently, the concern that one will carry the matzah to the expert automatically falls away. The sages knew they needn't be concerned for a technicality, which resulted from that year's calendar system. Because if God gives us a mitzvah, it will get done, and nothing can obstruct that. And so when the energy can't be accomplished from Shabbos or automatically from something else, so then there's also no concern about inadvertently transgressing the law. To understand a little bit why, let's be a little more specific. Chassidus teaches us that when a Jew transgresses a Torah law, even accidentally, it's a result of his ego. It's not in sync with his altruistic self. Had he been less self-centered and more focused on his mission in life, he may have avoided trespassing where he should not have been. On Pesach, we avoid all chametz, leavened bread, and specifically eat matzah. Chametz, which has yeast and rises, is symbolic of the human ego, which rises, get puffed up, and our selfish tendencies. Matzah, on the other hand, is flat and symbolizes humility and submission to higher purpose. When we eat matzah on the Seder night, our faith is strengthened and our subservience to God is energized, while our unhealthy ego and pride are weakened. Of all the mitzvahs of the holidays, it is the power of the matzah that prevents self-centeredness from causing a Jew to sin, even accidentally. And for this reason, the sages found no need to cancel the mitzvah of matzah on the night of Pesach. Revelation then, revelation now. There is no holiday like Pesach. No night like the night of the Seder. It's the night which regarding which the Torah says, I will strike them and I will redeem you. It doesn't say you will be redeemed. Rather, it says, I will redeem you. God himself stretched out his hand to punish our oppressors and free us from their clutches, enabling us to receive his Torah. He revealed his essence to us on that night, showering us with his love. On that night, the Jews baked bread for their journey, but it did not rise. It remained thin, flat matzah. No ego could rise on that holy, powerful night, the night God revealed himself to us. And so it is every Pesach since then. That's why when the sages are concerned about a Jew mistakenly sinning on the holidays, they're not concerned about Pesach. How could anyone disobey the king when he stands in his very presence? We're so sensitive, we're so in tune, we're so in touch with holiness on this night that we won't even do a sin accidentally. And such is the power of Pesach and Matzah. May we merit to experience the ultimate revelation very soon. A revelation which it says will be even greater than the one that was displayed at Yetzias Mitzrayim at the Exodus. Then our journey out of Egypt will finally reach its end, bringing us to a true material and spiritual freedom. May it happen sooner than we can imagine. Well, thank you for joining us. Let's see if there are any questions. So I see a question here. If every detail in existence supports mitzvah, what about free will to choose to do a mitzvah? Then does this mean it doesn't make any difference what one does? Good question. Free will, always a question that is very hard to wrap our heads around. God created a world which could only be in sync with his will. How is it possible that we could go against it? I think, if I may, just it's hard to address this concept in a short conversation here, but think about a father who wants to enjoy have nachas from his child, and the child has free choice, obviously, and when he makes the right choice, that brings a real nachas to the father. So when God created the world, he didn't just, part of his desire is that we have that free choice. It's that we be able to make, quote unquote, the wrong choice, which that is what will give him the nachas. And so having the ability to make that wrong choice is part of God's will and desire. Now, when it comes to, again, to the world and things really being a true obstruction to us fulfilling a mitzvah, that is what we were talking about at the talk, that there can't be something which is a real obstruction to the mitzvah. There must be some way that this is part of God's will. And there are times when we are physically prevented from doing a mitzvah. When someone is, in jail, or actually literally tied up and he can't put on tefillin, he is physically prevented from doing the mitzvah. There is, circumstances where God does, make that happen. But the question here was more about the sages and their ability to enact decrees and how that works in sync with God's plan of giving us mitzvahs, but also giving them the task of, protecting us from transgressing the negative commandments at the same time. Hope that answers the question. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. And if you're on JNet.org/11, so on top of my, here, well, of this screen, there's a link where you can click on the button to enter your name that you studied this talk, and this will be included in a report that we send to the Rebbe, part of the birthday gift here of studying Torah in honor of his birthday. And also there will be a raffle for $300 at svarimsays.com, and for a second raffle for $100 at kahat.com. And just want to thank everybody who made this possible, especially Chai Cohen, our online classes coordinator. Thank you very much for pulling things together. And also wanted to thank our sponsors of this campaign, which are svarimsays.com for the prize, Kahas for their prize, Elite Sterling for your Judaica silver needs, and Oraita, where you can get Sifrei Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzahs, and have your Mezuzahs checked or Tefillin checked, and a Seaview Optical, who has really been a great supporter. You can get fine glasses over there on Kingston Avenue. And so again, thank you for joining us. I actually will just review the questions, which are on page 18. So the first question that if you want to share, the answers to the questions, we have the opportunity for you to share that on that page as well, besides for entering your name. The first question is, what is the difference between the question of how can the sages uproot a Torah commandment and the Rebbe's way of understanding it? The straight up question is how could they uproot it when it's a real mitzvah, and here they are saying, hey, we're not going to do this mitzvah. But the Rebbe's way of understanding it is, no, how could God put a situation where the sages would have to enact a decree which would cancel a mitzvah? So it's a question on God rather than on or the sages also the sages' understanding of things. And with this talk, we really got an appreciation for the fact that the sages really know what's going on behind the scenes. The second question is, what is the effect of the superior quality of the spiritual energy of Pesach, which we said was on, the first thing was the idea that the energy which comes down on Pesach is something that Shabbos cannot accomplish. It's greater than that of Shabbos. The other effect is that it actually causes us to be at a higher level, so that we are not able to even perform an unintentional sin. And the final question is, what message did you take from this surah? And I'm sure that there's lots of individual answers to that question, and hope to be seeing some of them. So again, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. And feel free to send any feedback to us to info@jnet.org. And we look forward to seeing your name in the submissions and to having you participate in the other great learning campaigns and online classes that we have for you. Take care, and we wish you a kosher and happy Pesach, a kosher and feilich Pesach. May we merit to celebrate this Pesach in Yerushalayim with the ultimate redemption. May it be right away.